Put your hands on top of your head.
Well, I didn't.
Now! Here comes the jam. Getting down with the truth. The only way he knows how to. Girl, what's his name? We call him the Chief. You're damn right. He's gonna get that sucker. Throw a track down the truth. You know what a track down the truth. You know what they call him. We call him the Chief. You're damn right we do.
I'll bet your mother had a loud bark.
Good morning. This is Morning Coffee with the Chief. I'm your host, Patrick Jordan, here on Pop Culture Minefield. You can find our show every Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time here on YouTube, and we also broadcast on Rumble. And, you know, they broadcast it on their Twitter page or the Twitter feed and their Facebook page as well. So there's no reason why you can't watch Morning Coffee with the Chief. I know it's early for some, but hey, you know what? We got to review movies, and on this show we do it at 8 o'clock in the morning because we got other stuff to do during the course of the day. Now, today's show, we're going to do Die Hard with a Vengeance. This is the third in the series, Bruce Willis' Die Hard series, and I did the last couple over the last few weeks. I had to take a break because of some family issues, and here I am. I'm back again, and we're gonna do the third in the series, and I have a couple great guests coming on. But before I get into my guests, let's talk about the Los Angeles Mission. I was down at the Mission the day before Thanksgiving and served a bunch of meals to the homeless down there, and I want to encourage you to look up the losangelesmission.org. It's funny what's going on. There's this backlash against funding homeless services, mostly because government got involved and they're wasting billions of dollars. But the Los Angeles Mission has been doing a good job at providing services to the homeless in downtown Skid Row for over 85 years. And I think we served like 2,500 meals, maybe 3,000 meals that day. I did the first shift and left as they kept going. And they got a Christmas event coming up, so they need your help. I think it's going to be the 23rd. I'm going to go down there again this year. So just go to the losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. We do, in addition to serving a meal for Christmas, if there are some kids on Skid Row, they try to make sure that they get a Merry Christmas with some gifts. And they usually buy some age-appropriate gifts to give away. So, but they need your help. And just to remind you, they are a faith-based organization. So they have a faith-based element, which limits sometimes how much they can get from government. Now, they do lease out some of their beds to government, but the ones that they're responsible for, in which they provide the wraparound services for 6 to 12 months, receive no government funding because they do have a faith-based element to it, which I just don't agree with, but that's just the way it is. So do me a favor, go to the losangelesmission.org and make a donation today. And I will tell you, I forgot to put the picture in the comments, but I was down there and the sheriff was there and there were a bunch of his staff was there, and you know, they recognized me and came over, got a picture with some of them guys. And I guess they saw me last year, but it was a new sheriff thing and I was part of the old regime, so they didn't come to me last year and talk to me, but this year they came up and talked to me, and it was good to see some of those guys down there helping with the Los Angeles Mission on Thanksgiving. So do me a favor, pull up the losangelesmission.org and make a donation today, and you know, that'll make you feel good. But today's movie is Die Hard with a Vengeance, and I got two of our regular guests coming back, and it's always good to have the banter of these folks. And I guess I'll have to go by rank. So we'll have to go to Chief Ralph Ornelas. He retired as a chief from Westminster Police Department and as a commander from the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And Ralph and I know each other, worked around each other, but I never worked for him. He never worked for me, right?
That's right. How you doing, Pat? Merry Christmas to everybody in your audience, and wish you and your family the best also.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate coming back on the show. This should be a fun show that we do today. Hey, Slasher Fred, welcome to the show this morning. And my second guest is a retired Lieutenant John Baylis. He is a California refugee living somewhere in the whereabouts in Nevada, and he's a newlywed. So
Congratulations.
congratulations, and I hope you had a good Thanksgiving. And welcome back to the show, John.
Thanks for having me. Hey, I appreciate you doing that stuff with the mission. You're doing the Lord's work, and Merry Christmas to all you guys too.
All right, thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
Well, pull them up and make a $50 donation, John. It'll help. They have an emergency phone call coming up here, and I have a feeling it might be a funding thing. So for the board, I'm on the board. So we'll see what's going on. They were telling me, and I think they're getting it. They taxed a lot in LA County. Ralph, you're still in LA. I know you're in Orange County, right? So
I'm in Orange County.
Yeah, they got this tax, the HHH tax, which raised $1 billion over a certain amount of time, and they blew the money. They didn't spend a $500 million, $500,000. They blew a bunch of money, and they're not having any success. They built infrastructure upon infrastructure, and you know who the county is. It's siloed, right? You have to get all these people working together, and the leadership in the county just isn't capable of doing that. And so now they're asking for more money, and I think that people are having homeless fatigue in LA because they're asking for money and they've not accomplished anything. But you have nonprofits like Mission who are actually doing a good job, and you have these other nonprofits that maybe they're not ready for prime time. That's kind of how I see it. So I think it might be the failure of other organizations might be impacting good organizations like the Los Angeles Mission. I don't know. Ralph, you're pretty close to the issue. You're just over in Orange County. You kind of agree with that, or you kind of see that? The homeless.
Pat, you hit a chord, and I agree with you said, because I think that, including myself, I've donated money. I was on an advisory board of Harlem Lacrosse, which did a great job of the funding and managing the funding. Tom Rothman, Mike Levin. Tom Rothman is the chairman of Sony Studios. We had some really high level people managing the monies, but as you all know, there were some foundations or organizations that took money, and I'm not going to name them, but I'll just throw this out to you. I work with a volunteer foundation called Robin's Nest here in Orange County, helping youth, not youths, but youth in Orange County. In fact, I just did a video. I put it up on a reel on LinkedIn and Instagram, me speaking at different high schools throughout Orange County, helping about the dangers of fentanyl. I call it the deadly dose. And Robin's Nest is a fabulous foundation helping the youth of our communities.
Yeah, one pill can kill. I just think that there's been homeless fatigue, mostly because we've spent a lot of money and haven't gotten a lot of results, mostly because the government hasn't got a lot of results, and they've directed money to groups that don't really have, they haven't demonstrated a track record of success, and that isn't the case with the LA Mission. They've done a great job.
No, I agree with you, Pat, and I think it's fatigue, and I think mismanagement of the government, not the private entities like what you are on the advisory board.
Yeah, and they didn't used to get money. It was only recently they started getting money because I think they had a reputation of getting things done, and government was struggling. But anyways, that's enough on the politics of LA and the homeless. Let's get into a fun movie. Now I did the last three. You guys weren't with, or the last two. You weren't with me when I did Die Hard and Die Hard 2. I had some other guests with me, and it was fun. And they had kind of a Christmas theme based. We don't really have Christmas here, but I know you guys have watched the other two movies, but it was really The Lone Ranger with Roy Rogers there, or John McClane, Bruce Willis. But this one's kind of more of a buddy flick, right? Even though they're not buddies at the beginning, they added another main character, and that's Samuel L. Jackson as Zeus Carver, right? And so I saw this as kind of a more cop buddy flick, even though Zeus is not a cop. He ends up acting in kind of that capacity, kind of like 48 Hours, right? 48 Hours 2, and some of the other cop buddy flicks. What do you think, Ralph? Did you kind of see that in this one too?
Yeah, I think it evolved for that. They had to build a relationship up between them. I mean, when you has when with the the inspector put John McClane out with just his underwear on and a gun taped to his back, and a sign says "I hate the N" and use the N-word, and Zeus sees it, comes out there. He came out to save him, and that's how they started their relationship. And I thought it was very interesting, and I thought it was interesting throughout the whole movie about race and stuff, and how they were weaving that in and out
Yeah.
all the time. And at the end, I thought it was interesting that how they really came together, just like the movie, the Green Book. Remember the movie Green Book with?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So I thought it was at the end and how they saw eye to eye about life as men.
Oh, well, and that was based upon a true story, which is kind of
Yes.
an interesting thing, right?
Yes.
All right, John, cop buddy flick. You kind of see that, and if
Oh, yeah.
that's a yes, what do you think? What's your best cop buddy flick before we start rolling the video here?
Yeah, there's so many different ones. I liked the one with Nick Nolte and Eddie Murphy, 48 Hours.
Yeah.
They didn't get along at all in the beginning. But, in the end, you do. And I'll tell you, Green Book was a great movie, Ralph. That was phenomenal, and well acted, well written. But in this, it's funny. When we start off seeing Samuel Jackson, he's known for the F word and all the other stuff. But he's talking to those two kids, and he's really mentoring them great until the end. He goes, and we hate the white guy or something, what he said. And don't listen to the white man, or don't trust the white man. That was funny. But then, they were doing this. And, of course, they ended up teammates because they both had the same vision at the end. They knew what they had to do. But,
well, you know what?
they became friends.
On this show, I'm not going to have clips. What I'm going to do is we're going to roll the film, right? And then I'll just talk about some of the clips, maybe sometimes before or sometime after it rolls, but and just hopefully keep the conversation going. And we're, some of the other people that star in this, and bring a comment here. We got Slasher Fred is here, and he's commenting on Jeremy Irons. Jeremy Irons is the other, I think, big actor in this movie that you recognize, right? And he's good. This is the second time where Jeremy Irons plays a brother. 2 years before he previously played an outcast brother, Scar, at the original Lion King. All right,
yeah.
Thank you. Well, yeah, he played the brother, and the bad guy here. 2 years before Samuel Jackson was in Lethal Weapon, spoof, Loaded Weapon 1, which was also a buddy cop movie. Yeah, so I got Slash Fred. You kind of agree that they kind of morphed us into a cop buddy movie, and thank you, Penny. Welcome to the show. So Jeremy Irons is in this show as well, and
hell of an actor.
And so any other, John, you're the aficionado or the trivia buff on.
Well, I'll tell you, that scene we just talked about where he's talking to the two kids.
Yeah.
Those are two little brothers, Aldous and Edwin Hodge. Aldous now is a huge actor. He's played in a lot of miniseries. Right now, he just started a new series called Cross, on Peacock on NBC. He played in Leverage, which is a TV show about con men going after the bad corporations and stuff. He's been around a long time. Young black. He played in Black Adam. He's been in a lot of stuff, but that was his first thing as a kid there.
Well, let's roll it. Let's start rolling the film there. Hodges played Hawkman in Black Adam.
Black Adam. Yep.
And let's start rolling it, Martine. And I think, one of the comments I roll, he's back in New York. And now, if you guys, just in case you don't remember, he was a lieutenant from NYPD when he was in LA for the first Die Hard, right? He was visioning his wife, Holly Gennaro, and dealing with Hans Gruber, Jeremy Irons' brother, I guess, Simon's brother. And I think if I had to, Hans was definitely the better villain, although I thought Jeremy Irons was good, did a good job, but Hans was definitely the better villain of the two. But now he's back in New York as a lieutenant, which is, that's the magic of Hollywood, right? You don't have to worry about civil service exams and putting your time in. You can be lieutenant in New York, go right to LA, be lieutenant in LA, and then go back to New York and be lieutenant in New York again, right? So,
but he was relieved of duty.
He was relieved of duty. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting how they he handed him his badge and gun back, just right then and there. It wasn't in the safe,
Yeah, yeah. And so I mean, obviously, the cops in the audience got to go, okay, yeah, right. And of course, he's was previously assigned to Major K Squad, and they have this explosion that goes on, and here's our Major K Squad guy, commander. He was a commander, right? This is a commander, right?
Inspector.
Inspector.
Yeah.
That's kind of a commander, right? A commander.
It is.
Yeah, we used to call our guys.
Well, we used to be inspectors, and then they changed the commanders like in '85 or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, just a kind of a higher ranked guy to be calling the shots like this. Normally, you'd have lieutenants and captains that are doing the grunt work, but
not in NYPD.
Not in NYPD. Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, I've been on the show regularly with let's see, New York's Finest Unfiltered. Been on with them a couple of times. They broadcast first thing in the morning, and they are all over all the corruption going on in New York City. They're building an audience quickly just because there's so much to talk about in New York City, right?
Yeah.
But so they have this event, and of course, this guy Simon, our main bad guy, Jeremy Irons' character, keeps asking for John McClane, and he's off on a bender because he's suspended, right? And it's funny, if you look at his character, the progression of his character on the first two and this one, it's pretty clear his identity as a cop is very important to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he gets relieved of duty, and he does what a lot of people who really identify with being cops do, is they kind of fall off the deep end. In this case, it's drinking, so. But they want him back, and which is a curious thing. And of course, they bring him back, and he's looking pretty rough here, smoking, of course. And this is the sign where he meets the two kids we're talking about, right, John? Yeah, you want to talk about this sign? What happens in this scene, John?
In which one?
This is the one where he's about ready to put his sign on and walk in Harlem.
Exactly. So. In that, yeah, you mean when he saw John with the N-word?
Yes. Yeah. So, all right.
Go ahead. Are you supposed to be in Bellevue or what? Bellevue being the mental hospital over there. But, yeah, that was kind of scary. And, the other kids hadn't seen him yet. The other guys on the stoop. Right. Then they finally found him. Then the fight was on. But, yeah, to do that in Harlem back in those days, Harlem is what do they call it?
Ground zero?
When it's changed. It's a lot of white yuppies up there now and everything else.
It's gentrified is what I think.
Gentrified,
that's the term you're looking for, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's
he's
not.
Trying to tell him, hey, I'm a cop. And he goes, I don't give a fuck who you are. You're gonna get killed.
Yeah, I think the first time I was in Manhattan, I want to say it was 2005, 2006-ish, and I was staying at the Marriott near Times Square, and I went for a run through Central Park, and I ended up in Harlem. And I'm thinking, I was like, well, I'm kind of from Detroit too, so I have this perception, and I'm like, where's the beef? What's the big deal? This is a beautiful area. So you're right. That gentrification from the 60s and 70s had already occurred. 20 years later, everything was good. Yeah. Giuliani had cleaned up the city, and we could do 2 hours of discussion on that. But here's the kids you're talking about, right, John?
Yeah, absolutely. That's Aldous Hodge and his younger brother Edwin.
And
he's a major actor right now.
And there's Samuel L. Jackson, and what are you doing in school? And he's playing I don't know.
So he was mentoring him well,
Right, yeah.
Well, he's when I grew up, the little mom and pop stores, I wasn't in New York like Ralph was, but in California, in some of the small towns, you had little grocery stores, and that's where everybody congregated. And they just mentor the little kids coming in, and that's what he's doing here.
You look at when they filmed this in '95. Just think about this. In certain scenes, it kind of strikes my heart, kind of emotional, because in one of the scenes you'll see later on, it shows in the background the Twin Towers and stuff.
Yep.
And I lost friends of mine in those Twin Towers. But also, you talk about Harlem in the '60s my dad used to take me to get haircuts at Harlem. His best buddy was Coley Wallace, who made the Joe Louis movie. And we would be at that time, the only non-blacks driving to Harlem, and we'd park right in front of the barbershop. And everybody's looking at my dad and I, and Coley Wallace come running up to my dad and I, hug us, and everybody knew it was all cool, but Harlem had really, I forget the name of the singer, the female singer, black singer. She really brought a lot of money in the 80s. I forget her name, to Harlem, that brought a lot of other investments in restaurants and clubs and stuff. And, it's really a changed environment down there. And I think it did do a lot of good work. Unfortunately,
Holiday?
What's
Was
that?
this Holiday? The singer was
No. It was she is in the early 80s. I can't remember her name, but she brought a lot of money in there and brought a lot of other entertainers to invest in there. And but John mentioned the word stoop, and I'm surprised John even brought it, because John, I know he's Italian, but he didn't grow up in Brooklyn. But we used to play stoop ball when I was growing up in Brooklyn, and that everyone always tell anybody, I'm sitting on a stoop. What the hell's a stoop? But that's funny you brought that up, John. Thanks a lot for bringing that up.
Well, I think we got Samuel L. Jackson does get involved in here. Just to clarify the audience, so John McClane has to wear a sign that says, I think, "I hate the N-word," right, or something like that. And he's by himself, and he has really no backup. The backup's 10 blocks away. And our bad guy, who is the brother of Hans, Simon, Hans was killed in Die Hard 1 by John McClane. And so there's a little bit of revenge going on here. And Simon figures that the guys in Harlem will take care of him. And as Ralph mentioned, the guys on this, John mentioned, the guys, some of the guys hanging out, a young group of guys, maybe gangsters, who knows, sees them, and Samuel L. Jackson's character, Zeus, intercedes. And it was interesting what Zeus said. Why did you help me? He says, "I'm not helping you because of you.
Yeah.
I just know if they kill a cop down here," because Willis had explained who he was, "that we're going to have a whole bunch of cops down here, and it's going to be bad for my neighborhood," right? So, I think so. Yeah, that's his explanation, and that kind of lays out the racial tension going on, right, Ralph?
Yeah, I think that scene right there, as you eloquently said, Pat, kind of lays out the premise, what evolves throughout the whole movie, and what Samuel L. Jackson stated in that commentary. And I think that's part of the great thing about movies like this and other movies, and how it weaves its story, and how two relationships, two different people come together and maybe on opposing sides. And later on in the movie too, they always, Samuel L. Jackson always puts a divide in it, and then all of a sudden, Bruce Willis brings some other conversation back in it to try to show there's alignment somehow, So I think they did a good job in that. I think it was a well written by the writer. I think the writer's name was Rod Thorpe, who was the novelist of this whole movie.
Well, I think Slasher Fred's got a comment. This movie is pretty much a direct sequel. Here we go. Pretty much a direct sequel to the original movie, because you have the brother of the original villain. As I said, I think he was a better villain, Hans, who was after the cop who killed him. Yeah, thank you, Slasher Fred. Yeah, and that's exactly right. But it's the plot is much more complicated. We do get into it. It ends up being more of a robbery than any kind of terrorism stuff going on.
Right.
And
excuse me. Slasher Fred also earlier stated, and I agree with him, the first two were centrally located in one location. The first one was the Nakatomi Towers. The second one was I forgot the second.
We lost you, John. The second one was what?
The second one, the location of where they had the issue, was the airport in Chicago, right?
What's it, Chicago? No, I think it was D.C. So it was based in D.C. and there's two airports in D.C.
Yeah, it was in the airport, but it was in one central location where Slasher Fred brought up. This movie has locations all over New York. You know,
Yeah.
the subway, buildings, you know, here, the shipyard, everywhere, under the ground, in the tunnels, subway. So they're using a lot of different locations as opposed to
Dulles.
the one central location.
Yeah, it was based mostly in Dulles with some outlying areas in that one. Yeah, this was it was the first movie in the series which included a female terrorist as well. Oh,
Get down.
okay. Yeah.
I agree with Slasher Fred and what John said. Which I love being from New York. I love the fact they showed a lot of different locations in New York City. I mean, you had Manhattan. You showed the Brooklyn Bridge and Williamsburg Bridge. I mean, even with the tunnels they were, they filmed that. I think that it was well done. It was really well done, and I had to put a lot of work into it. But again, I go back. I think to during the Giuliani years, he brought that in.
Well, he brought that in. I did want to. Okay, so we got to talk about Samuel L. Jackson a little bit. Here's an accomplished actor. He's got a lot of credits under his belt, and I think he added. It kind of, if you think about it, in sequels sometimes the formula gets a little dry, and this added a little different formula. He's a good actor. It flipped it to, like I said, a cop buddy flick, so to speak. And he played Shaft, right? Wasn't he Shaft? And I just like him. Yeah, he's an excellent actor. He's fun to watch. He always makes the movies entertaining. And what do you think of Samuel L. Jackson there, John? You're the movie guy.
Yeah, he is a good actor. Lately, everything's the F-bomb. But I'll tell you, that you want to see a good movie, and it's a good caper movie, is where he plays the supposed drug dealer that goes to England, and he's playing golf in Scottish kilt and everything. That has a really good storyline to it, and a lot of switchy changing in the end. You'll love that movie. I can't think of the name of it right now.
Oh, you'll have to when you think of it. I heard that if you hit the back of your head with your hand, the thought comes to the forward. So so just try that and see what happens. Okay. Anyways, I liked his name too, Zeus.
Yeah.
Zeus, and he had to ask him that twice. So Zeus, of course, that's the primary god in Greek mythology, and you get the sense that this is a really smart guy. The character's a really smart guy. In fact, when they, Simon tends to be a riddler, and he keeps sending these guys on missions to figure things out, and it seems to be Samuel L. Jackson who's figuring out before Mr. McClane, right, on what the riddle is. I mean, there's interplay, and they both contribute. But Zeus seems to have knowledge and understanding beyond the dumb beat cop. Maybe that's what they're trying to get across. What do you think, Ralph? Did you kind of see that on this one?
Yeah, I believe that Samuel Jackson was well read, and he shows his intellect. While at the phone booth, John McClane's having difficulties when ready to take his shoes off the count, and Samuel Jackson's figured out the code and stuff as 001, and they played off each other well on that, and then I thought it was kind of funny when they said the wrong thing, that the bomb was going to go off. They dove in two different directions and stuff near that phone booth. But yeah, I think Samuel Jackson in this part, he kind of had the quick mind to figure things out.
Yeah, he also did that movie that we reviewed before, The Negotiator.
Right. Yeah.
That we did on this podcast.
Well, the other thing is, obviously these guys give the wrong code. They think a bomb's going to go off, and they both hit the dirt, right? And nothing happens, and our bad guy's just chuckling, right? But you get the sense that they're being monitored, right?
Yeah.
And we got to get into this because we just had this assassination in Manhattan, right?
United Health. Thompson.
Yeah, United Health. In fact, I'm going to be on a show tomorrow. A new show, and I'm going to talk about it. But the interesting thing is, and when I relate it to this, it's I think I had you, Ralph, on, and we talked about it was the French Connection and doing surveillance in Manhattan,
Mm-hmm.
and somehow these guys all seem to be able to get it done. And the fact that they're always monitoring and always seem to have an eye on these guys just doesn't fly with me, right? That they're I'm obviously they're sending them to a certain phone booth so they can monitor it, but I don't think you could do that and not be noticed by some loudmouth New Yorker saying, "What are you doing here?" Right? And not to be offensive, but yeah, they're going to get challenged, right? That's just kind of how. What do you think, Ralph? You think this is just Hollywood? This happens because of Hollywood? Because I don't think it's going to happen that smoothly.
Well, I mean, Hollywood obviously they plan ahead. They, the what's his name, Jeremy Irons has really planned this out. So he could have put his surrogates or his team members out there far away with binoculars and watch these people. I mean, and let's face it, NYPD in reality does a great job. I know my nephew was on that case. Pat and John, that this happened, and they do. I mean, they have great surveillance of CCTV, but also they got people dressed up and driving taxi cabs. They're detectives. I mean, so they could do some of that stuff without getting burnt. But I mean, in this movie, he could have planned ahead because he was always one step ahead of them to put his people, in a distance away, watching with binoculars. Near the end of the movie, that's what they did to Samuel L. Jackson at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah. I just think it would be a little more because the cops have hard time surveilling people. So I think these guys would have a little more harder time. So Hollywood helps make it a little easier, right? They always get it right in the script. I want to bring up that murder yesterday just because the day before they caught the guy, I actually posted on Twitter that just reminds me of the Unabomber, how there was a great deal of planning to pull it off and planning to escape without being detected, right? Now, the Unabomber was operating in a different time, but he had a hoodie on most of the time when he was planting his bombs. He took great precautions to avoid detection. He knew if there were surveillance cameras around to conceal his identity. As he built his bombs, he evolved over time to make sure that there were no traceable items for the bombs. And that was and it took us 20 years to finally catch that guy, the Unabomber. And it was funny when they finally came out that this was the guy. And I'll throw this question to you, John, to comment. Is he had read the manifesto of the Unabomber, made positive comments about the Unabomber, and I just got the impression. And I was just going based on MO, right? I had read that Unabomber case. If I had to pick an MO, I would say this is most closely to the Unabomber MO, and that's what I saw. What do you think? A lot of similarities in how he executed the planning and he carefully escaped. I just don't think he counted on as much surveillance as there existed, meaning all the cameras. And of course, is some gal or flirted with him and he foolishly took his mask down. That was his undoing in terms of. So what do you think of that whole thing, John? The Unabomber connection and the assassin yesterday.
Yeah, that's a good correlation. I saw that the guy was arrested, but I didn't read anything about it. He took his mask down.
Yeah, he took his mask down in the hostel he was staying in for 2 weeks because some gal flirted with him. He wore a mask, though, and that was where I think they got an idea of what he actually looked like and got that out there, and somebody recognized him in a McDonald's. Now, there's conspiracy theories out there that's not really him. The government's trying to pin it on. So, to me, it's like too many people involved for this to be a conspiracy to tag it on this one guy,
Exactly.
What do you think,
Ralph? That's
I mean,
amazing. I knew they were looking for him. I saw this morning, I read that he was captured, but I never read anything about it.
What do you think, Ralph?
What was your question, though, Pat?
The similarities between the Unabomber and this guy in terms of his careful planning, his execution. He ended up being, an engineer, very smart engineer, valedictorian. The Unabomber was a brilliant guy who graduated from the University of Michigan. I think he was 20 when he graduated, went on for multiple degrees, and then, of course, he became a terrorist. Oh, you didn't know that? Oh, yeah.
No.
I read all up on him. It was very interesting, but it was the careful planning that he did that, and that he wore the hoodie, and he made sure that he, although the hoodies are more popular nowadays, back then a hoodie wasn't a big deal.
No.
But just the careful, and then now you find out that the guy they did arrest had read the manifesto of the Unabomber, had commented on it, and in a positive way.
Well, then
Are
I
you aware of
say
that,
he's
Ralph?
probably trying to pattern himself.
Yeah, that's what I saw. I go, hey, if you just look at the MO, this just reminds me of the Unabomber, was my comment the day before they actually caught the guy.
Yeah, I think this. He's this Luigi Mangione, kind of modeled himself after that. But his hatred for the health net, United Health Net, any health services. I was reading an article this morning that this criminal Luigi, had a back surgeries and things were not successful, and I think he took some, OxyContin. I think he had some mental illness regards to his not his recovery as well. What happened to him, and he took it out on the United Healthcare. I think it's tragic and ugly what he did. And as we all know in the careers we've been involved in, you could try to plan and plan and plan, but he made a lot of mistakes, Luigi, too. And things that I'm not going to mention on this is that my nephew shared with me, who was working on this case. There's always mistakes by a criminal.
Yep.
We could watch all the Columbo shows, and we all know the criminals, makes mistakes. And I say that Columbo because there was an LAPD homicide guy who was famous that worked on a lot of the scripts with the Columbo, and it always comes out a mistake of the criminal's mind who thinks they covered all the bases and they don't,
Right.
leave evidence or testimony or something like that. So, I'll share this with you. My nephew did a search warrant on the Thompson's, Thompson's hotel room and stuff. And yet it shows out that Mr. Thompson, the CEO, was a really good man.
Yes, I agree. It is the mistakes that usually catch them, and it's just with all the cameras you're allowed to catch. You see those mistakes. So we got Tom Baker's joined us. Thank you. About the movie. This is the third act. Our heroes are so invincible. It is ridiculous. It's like a Mickey Mouse cartoon. Yeah, it was a little bit out there. I mean, I got to back up a little bit. There is a scene where McClane challenges Simon, and Simon stutters in it, like he's getting under his skin, which is a throwback to the first movie where he got under the skin of Hans Gruber. But he gets they get another riddle they got to chase down, and McClane sends Zeus to handle the riddle or get to the phone in time because they have to get across town and get to this phone. And I think this is the one where they're driving like maniacs to get there. And McClane exits the car and he jumps on the top of a train car because John and I work transit. Of course, this isn't going to happen, but this is the movies, right? This is the movies.
Exactly.
Right. And he's going to try and intercede and get the bomb before, because he realizes the likelihood that we're going to be able to stop this. It was not something you could actually stop, no matter what happened. Right? It wasn't going to happen, and that he was going to blow the train up. That was his plan. He just hoped that he could get them guys along the way. But you're right, Tom. Here's our superheroes. They figure it out. He gets a phone call, but John McClane isn't there, so they're going to blow it up anyways. And we gotta back up a little bit. The explosive they use, I've never really seen this. The last 20 minutes is silly, where the two mix like that, and then they get to a point, and then they can be triggered. I'm not. The stuttering was fake. Yeah, I know that the stuttering was fake. He wanted to give McClane the impression that he got under his skin. Yes, you realize that later on as they show that later on in the movie, but McClane gets on the train and he ends up finding a police box on the train, which doesn't exist. Right? I've never seen anything like that on a train. Ralph, you grew up in New York. Did you ever see anything like that on a train?
I don't remember seeing that on the train. And then even during the '60s, call boxes are on a pole, not inside the train. So
yeah, and it's an interesting thing. We used to teach deviation assessment. I think John knows this, Steve. So we would teach our staff, the guys that work in transit, look at an environment, because you have a static environment, right? So you're seeing an environment every day, whether it's a train station, a subway platform, a train car, a bus. You see the same environment every day. And when you're looking for security lapses, you look for those things that deviate. And of
Right.
course, that's John's looking for. He's looking for something that doesn't fit. And he finds the call box that is magnetically attached to the wall, and he realizes that right away that that's the bomb. So I have to think, like you talk, Ralph, they have to talk to somebody, because I mean, some cop somewhere, because that's classic deviation assessment, and check those things out that don't fit, right? I mean, we do that as street cops all the time, but when you're talking about a security thing, it's very particular for security as well.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, it's that you look for things that don't look like they belong all the time. I mean, that's what we're supposed to do all the time if you're on the game. And in this movie though, I like what what Mr. Baker said about it's silly during that time, but you guys work the transit. How do you survive that? But that's part of movies though. And then Baker said it's like kind of Mickey Mouse. Yeah, okay, it's Mickey Mouse, but that's what's entertainment. It's not reality. And we all know, the three of us and all the people that watch your show, Pat, a lot of times police work is dull for so many hours, and all of a sudden it's that fraction of a second when the adrenaline rush, you got to be there and you got to be on your game to make sure you accomplish the mission, and that's part of love. I love about police work, and you could be dull, and all of a sudden when the bell rings, you got to be ready when that bell rings.
This is true.
Yeah, and Tom's got a point. You could throw his comment back up there. There's a lot easier ways to pull off a robbery, and so you have to take leaps of faith. I just wrote in my comments as I watched this movie, the Riddler. It's like, okay, we're going to the Riddler for Batman, and you have to think of, if John McClane wasn't meant to survive the first scene, in Harlem wearing the sign saying, why do they have all these riddles ready to go? Who was supposed to do that if John McClane doesn't survive the first scene, right? And so so it's that's where it does get a little silly. I mean, I think if you look at the Nakatomi, the first one, where it's contained in a building, and McClane he's disrupting what their plan is. And if you look at what's going on with Simon here, he anticipated that McClane would overcome all these things, and this keeps happening with him. But why? Why is he? If you planned out really well, they don't survive the first one, right? So I mean, but this is Hollywood, right, Ralph? So
it's Hollywood. And I gotta say something. I love the fact they filmed this in New York City and all different. But I gotta tell you, my favorite is still the first one. I mean, I something about it to me. I could believe more about a Nakatomi building being taken over than this whole city, and it's like being on a New York City marathon, running from one place to another place to solve each crime. But that's what I love about movies, though, and entertainment. They got to make it interesting, and I think they added a flair of the combination of Samuel L. Jackson's personality with John McClane and Bruce Willis and Graham Greene and Jeremy Irons and all of that. In fact, I love the lady who didn't say a damn word, who was an assassin. Her name was Sam Phillips. I thought she had the most interesting part. She didn't say a damn word.
Yeah, she's interesting because she's also
Stone
a singer,
killer,
right? And in real life, she's a singer, right? And I wouldn't say she's done a lot of scenes, but I think this is one of her first big ones, her first big movie thing. And yeah, she's a very interesting character. But this is just escapism Hollywood, right, John? It's just
oh, exactly. Let's face it. Like when McClane gets onto this subway and he jumps down on top, yeah. But then when he kicks through the window to get inside,
yeah,
that would not have broken.
No,
we don't have those type of windows. It's all shock resistant and everything else, and it broke like regular plate glass. You got to take it for what it's worth. It's entertainment.
Are you talking the first? Are you talking the first one where he
jumps into the cab? He wants to get in.
Oh,
when he's on top of the subway.
Yeah.
The subway car. He's trying to get to that bomb. Well, he can't get in. He's got to break the window to get in, and he kicks through with his feet. that would not have happened.
Yeah,
You know, all this stuff.
He'd be laying on the track.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You know, it for me as being a cop, you and I will sit there and look and go, oh yeah, like that's going to happen. But at the same time, we enjoy it, the chases and all that, all these chases, and nobody gets hit by a car. And come on, you know, it's just.
Oh, I know.
But it's Hollywood. You gotta, you know, think differently if you want to be entertained.
Yeah. Are you entertained? Who said that in what movie, right?
Exactly.
Gladiator, right? There's Gladiator.
Guys still there, Pat?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, Pat.
Yeah, go ahead. You still there, Ralph?
Hello.
Hey, Ralph, log out and come back in if you can. Do you want to send him a message there? Hey, Martine, do you see me?
Hey, you guys still there?
Yeah.
Hey, Pat.
Ralph,
John?
can you hear us?
Hello. Yes, I can see and hear all of you.
Some reason I lost connectivity with everybody.
Oh,
that tends to happen.
That happens. All right. Well, it ain't Hollywood, because in Hollywood that never would happen unless it was part of the script, right? So
I know.
Yeah. Can you log back in or what?
Wait a minute,
No.
Pat. You didn't write this in the script, Pat?
No, I didn't write it in the script. No, not at all. Let me go back to the normal comments, because I do enjoy. We got somebody that's with us this fall, and I enjoy his comments. The first Die Hard had a few silly moments, over the top, and in a good way. Yeah, I agree, and just smarter, right? Yeah, maybe tighter writing, I guess, is you called out the writing before, Tom, and I appreciate that. Here's the other thing. I mean, and Ralph, you can certainly talk about this now. In these intervening scenes, as we've had our discussion, they figure out that it's Simon Gruber, and McClane realizes who it is. Now he knows why he's being targeted, so to speak, why there's a vendetta against him, and they actually do want him dead. I think, but the next scene that I was gonna do, if I was gonna do scenes, was the taxi cab, stealing the taxi cab. Now, Ralph, I can't think of a time where I actually pulled my badge up and I'm taking your car. There was a time I had somebody drive me somewhere. Hey, drive me 5 blocks down there, because but I never commandeered a car. Any stories where you took a car, or you had somebody drive you somewhere, right?
You know, it's interesting you say that. We had a hijacking in the east end of the Carson's commercial area. I had my trainee with me, and actually we took Tom Jordan and I, not related to you, Pat Jordan. Tom Jordan and I commandeered a tractor that didn't have a trailer on it, and I got in it and I put a raincoat, it was raining, and a baseball cap, and we parked down the street from on Atlantic, and I think it was Artesia, and we waited west of this motel, and we sat in this tractor trailer until this guy came out. And I waited for John Knoll and his Cargo Cats team come out, and they didn't show up in time. And here's this hijack getting into this tractor, and me and Tom Jordan just jump out, and we had raincoats on, covering our uniform, and we took this guy down in the middle of Atlantic and Artesia. But we took this tractor, not with no trailer on, and that's the only time I could tell you that we commandeered. And the guy whose tractor he was very, very gracious. I didn't have to put a gun to his head. I just told him what we would do, and he goes, "Yeah, just as long as you bring it back, deputy." And we did.
Well, those tractor trailers, don't they have their stick, right? Or was it?
Yeah, yeah. So I was blessed. I used to work at an Eastern Express on Maspeth. My dad used to teach me how to drive the switcher, which was a stick, 16 gears and stuff. And so, I had the knowledge of that. Thank God I didn't have to drive too far. But that was, I'll never forget when me and Tom Jordan as partners, and Tom was kind of comical. Tom's like 6'4", just got out of the Marine Corps, 22-inch arms, and here I am, the midget.
Well, this is the scene where they're driving through Central Park. So he steals the cab and he's driving through Central Park. And, John, this is, since I've been doing these movies, I've obviously got a lot more up to speed and paying attention to the car chases, right? Whether it's, the 7-Ups or, I don't know if you've seen the movie The 7-Ups or,
Oh yeah,
what's his
Bullet.
name with Gene Hackman? Bullet. The one with Gene Hackman. Even Coogan's Bluff
French
with the
Connection.
motorcycle, the French Connection, and Coogan's Bluff with
The motorcycles.
motorcycles or Magnum Force with Dirty Harry. Is you're doing these chase scenes, and you realize that they have to dub in all of the sounds, right? And you realize, hey, these things don't always match when they're dubbing in the sounds. Like I remember watching the 7-Ups. It was an automatic, but it sounded like they were downshifting and upshifting.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It makes it a lot more interesting, I'm sure, the sounds, but it wasn't really accurate with what was going on. And so every time I see these chase scenes, or this one's not really a chase scene, they're just plowing through the park there in this cab, I pay attention to that, and they do a good job in this one, but you see the differences, right? You see where it doesn't quite match, and
what else I saw?
What's that?
I have this penchant now because of all these chases, and Tom Cruise does all his stunts. So I always look on the driver, and you can tell it's not Bruce Willis driving. They come around a couple corners, so I'm like, oh God, it didn't even look close to him.
Yeah, good obs, John. I noticed that too. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I know when Stephen McQueen, I think he did drive for most of Bullet. I know he did. I don't know if it was professional driving or celebrity pro driving. You know how they had those races where it was
right,
a pro amateur with celebrities, but and I don't think Gene Hackman. And it's interesting in those ones they had the Heckman. I think he was the stunt driver in those movies, and he was an excellent stunt driver. In fact, he was in both of those movies. He was in Gene Hackman's. Let's see. No, he's in 7-Up, and he was in
and Bullet.
And Bullet, yeah, did a great job. But I that's what I look every time I see something like that. I start paying attention to see if the downshifting and upshifting and all that stuff matches, and and the sound effects match. And
hey, Pat, if I could just inject, you mentioned that gentleman who was a stunt driver. He was in a Columbo episode. He was a motorcycle officer, pulls over Columbo, whose car is all messed up. It was, and his license plate wasn't valid. And I was shocked when I saw him. It was him as a motorcycle police officer for LAPD in one episode. That guy's a great actor though too, and a stunt driver.
Yeah. Well, all right. So Tom Baker says that the 7-Ups was thrilling. Well, we'll throw it to you, Tom, since you're commenting a lot. Best chase scene or like this one where the cop is driving fast in a car. What would you say was the most thrilling one that you can recall in a cop-related movie? Because maybe if we haven't done it, we'll have to do it again. But this is at kind of the terminus. John McClane is trying to get to a certain place, and our Zeus gets to a phone. And this is where we have that racial interplay. We haven't. The scene is probably passed already, but we have the racial interplay where Zeus is on the phone and the shaky cop.
Oh, and he was shaking.
The shaky cop comes up. Now, I have to tell you, I don't think I was ever shaky like that guy. So that there was some acting. Yeah, 7-Ups was so thrilling. All right, Tom, challenge to you is best pursuit scene in a cop movie. That throw it up there and see if we can, if we all agree. But I didn't like that scene. I know it's cinema, but man, I don't know. One, why would the cop pull his gun? There's no threat there. But so they're amplifying the race here the racism in my mind in the movie for theater, and any cop that's been through training for a long period of time is not going to be that. I don't think they're going to be that shaky. Not for the NYPD anywhere. Anyways, that's just my opinion. What'd you think of the scene, Ralph?
I mean, I agree with you. Is that I think it was a little over the top. I think they were playing to the from the beginning of the race issue, and here you got this white cop shaking his hand, his gun's shaking and stuff, and I personally, I just didn't think that scene needed to even be in there.
Yeah, well, they needed to play up the challenge. Zeus is under danger not only from these terrorists, but trigger-happy cops.
Yeah, exactly. It's negative about cops, and they purposely put that in there.
Yeah. So,
but that's Hollywood. I mean, let's face it. The people that pay the bills there, they're pretty kind of woke sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah. Even back in was it
1995?
Yeah. So this is just as we started reducing the crime, right? So it was still pretty high at the time. But yeah, I didn't like that scene. I thought it was an exaggeration, and but it builds on the stereotype.
Yep.
About the negative stereotype.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're right.
About cops. Yeah. So I think let's I think we got after this situation where the bomb doesn't go out, and you see them laughing together. This is where you start seeing them becoming buddy, and I think it's definitely past because they're going in the Federal Reserve now, which we'll get to. But you start to see the bonding between the two characters, right, John? So they're in adversity. People who are dealing with adversity together generally come together, right?
You have to, or somebody's gonna die. You're dependent on each other. That interdependency leads to better relationships.
Right. Yeah, it was kind of like John and I in 1980 in Men's Central Jail.
But that's true though, Ralph. I mean, when you start dealing with people, you're working with a partner for a while, even just a short period of time, and you see how they handle themselves, and you're dealing with hot calls and robberies or whatnot, you tend to become friends, even if they're not a lot like you, right?
Hey, Pat?
Yeah.
Pat?
Yes.
Yeah, but just it kind of lost you guys for a little bit. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Say it again, Pat.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you work with somebody for a while, you tend to develop that relationship with them, right? And that close, even if they may not even be somebody that you like, but if you work for them for 30 days, 60 days, you bond together because you're handling hot calls and whatnot that are coming out of that box, right?
Absolutely. But I gotta tell you, John was there before me, and John treated me really good. I was jokingly before, but John was a gentleman. He kind of showed me some of the ropes and answered my questions when I was a 22-year-old, at Men's Central Jail. And John was. I always appreciated John. He always he looked after me when I was a youngster there. But yeah, it's like when you get into a patrol car. And even when you're a cadet, and I never forget one of my first ride-alongs at Lenox Station, and they kind of treated you like crap, and all of a sudden you start talking a little bit, and you break bread, and all of a sudden before you know it, it didn't matter. You guys wearing the same uniform and trying to accomplish the mission and get through the night and go home at night.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Adversity brings you together, right? Which is what we're seeing between our cop buddies now. So I guess, Tom, I threw a challenge out there. So you're saying 7-Ups is the best chase scene that you can think of? Because I would say that's probably one of my best. And particularly as Raj Schneider, he ends that where he crashes into a truck. I don't know if you guys remember that movie. Crashes in the truck and he's driving a Ventura. So kind of a different. I think it was the same chassis as a Nova, but a different model. But yeah, it was a
good chase scene. The reason I like Bullet, it was really the original.
Yeah,
right.
Nobody did anything like that until that movie. But there's others since then. 7-Ups was excellent. You remember the movie Rock, The Rock, with
yes,
Sean Connery.
Yeah, Sean Connery. Well, they had a chase in that one that was very well done. And what I liked about it is the logistics, but the way that they handle all this, the cable cars and all that stuff, they had a lot of crap to put together to make that a good scene. Frankly, more people would have been injured, trust me. But I thought that was a good one. But I think I love Bullet only because it was the original.
Right. If I could comment, the reason I love Bullet too is my favorite. It was the first time ever, I believe, you could correct me, they put cameras inside the vehicle. And that's why when the first time people saw that going up and down the hills, some people got nauseous. And that was the first time they ever used cameras inside the vehicles when they were chasing each other.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
All right, we are at the halfway mark. Martina, are we taking a break today? Because we're doing kind of a different format. Are we stopping this and doing or no? Yes or no?
He's on break.
He's on break.
Yeah. Hey, you didn't know it. You didn't know it, Pat, but he went on a break already.
Yeah,
Hey, by the way, before we break,
I was moving. I had my mic muted. So.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Well, you got tired of hearing us. Can't you blame him?
These senior citizens need a potty break. We could take a break in between.
Oh, that was. Yes, we can.
Yes. All right, let's roll right now, and we'll come back and finish up the movie. Come back, follow us on Morning Coffee with the Chief after.
Are we taking a break?
Brief break. Yes.
Well, John already did.
John's got just stick around, Ralph. We'll be back in a couple minutes. You got time to go to the bathroom if you want to go to the bathroom.
There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then. There's only one location on the internet where you can get it all. Movie, TV, and comic industry. News and rumor analysis. Official scoops from Geekosity magazine. Reviews and interviews. So, when you need it to be Sunday, there's only one place to go, mate. Pop Culture Minefield. Well, they're always talking nerdy nerd stuff. Right, jog on then.
And here we are.
Yeah, we're all back. Hey, welcome back, everybody. Hey, I did want to tell you guys, we got some time. Ralph is off there. Did I get everybody? Yeah, I'm missing Ralph. Okay. It's tomorrow morning. I'm going to be on the show. It's let's see. It's a new show. The host is Jake Novak, and it's A Real America's Voices. RAV, Real America Voices. Let me see if I can find it. It's and so you can catch me online. It's a podcast. They kind of do it on Skype, but I'm going to be speaking about the Daniel Penny case, and I'm going to be speaking about this kid who killed. How do you say that? How do you say that, John? Luigi
Mangione.
Yeah. Apparently, there's new.
I got to practice
there's new
that.
info that he may be a patsy.
Well, that's what they got out there, but it's hard. I mean, I read the published manuscript for the guy today, and he did seem to have some angst against United Healthcare, and he had a gun on him that fit the description. It was a very unique gun, so you're not going to have that many people run around with a gun that has to be cocked every time it's shot. And so it's, but there's other things to talk about in terms of, it's only a 15-minute segment, so I'm sure I can fill up 15 minutes at a time. But it's Real America's Voice, RAV, and I'll be on at very brutal for me, 7:00 in the morning. So that you can do the math. It's Eastern Standard Time, 7:00 in the morning Eastern Standard Time. That's really early for me. But Jay came on my show, and he came on my show, Briefing with the Chief, which you can find at kjradb.com. And he's an expert on anti-Semitism here in the United States, and that's what we talked about on my show, Briefing with the Chief, just recently. So I got to return the favor and go on his show. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. He was a producer on Kudlow Reports. It's a financial thing. You guys probably recognize that one. And 3 mainstream cable shows on Fox, CNN, and the MSC, the Business Channel for MSNBC. So I'm branching out a little bit, getting a little different experience. So
Cool.
Try and catch me. Any comments on that? You guys going to get up early and catch me?
Yeah, hell no.
So what was it? Hey, Pat, was it 4:00 in the morning, West Coast
Yes,
time?
I said I'll get up and do it for him. But
Yeah.
I'm usually up by 4:30, 4:45 anyways. Yo estudio mi español en la mañana. So I study Spanish in the morning. That's when I get
Nice.
my studying done. There's an app I use, and so I always get up because then I don't bother my wife, and because they have a new feature on this app if you're learning Spanish where you can, they'll ask you questions in Spanish and you can respond in Spanish, and it understands what you said, and then it'll give you a log on what you said and tell you what you did correct and where you need to improve. And so once I started doing that, my Spanish is yo español es muy bien. It's getting better, right? So so I said, yeah, I'll just put off my Spanish lesson and go on.
Hey, Pat, you got the perfect teacher right there, Martin.
Martin, see. Yeah, he's not my maestro yet, but maybe I'll have to. He does tell me that I'm doing better on Spanish than the guy who owns the channel here, so that's good, right? Because
that's between you and me, and apparently now between the rest of the internet.
Well, that's okay. I don't think Gary wouldn't mind too much. So he's. But yeah, so I'm going to be on that show. So check it out. So hey, so back to the movie. Now now Simon, brother of Hans, now tells them that he's got a bomb planted in a school in New York, in one of the schools in New York, and suddenly they have to start searching schools to figure out where the bomb is at. They got the guy who played the bomb tech in this movie, I forget his name. I really liked his character. There's some character actors you just remember, right? And they have kind of a he plays this serious bomb tech guy, and but he's kind of a fun character. You guys know who I'm talking about? The
he does a good job.
Yeah.
I really liked him in this movie. And the character he played, because it's like, I can imagine if you're an actor and you get a script, and you go, okay, I look forward to this one. I can have fun with this one, and that's what
I thought he did a great job. He was cocky, he was funny, but it's serious at the same time. When he's looking at the first bomb, and where he threw the little dot of stuff on the syringe, and it exploded near the chair, and everybody's yelling at him. But then later on, when he goes for that final bomb, that was actually pretty interesting, especially at the end. And,
hey, can I comment about that? There was no way you're ever going to bring a bomb into a station.
Oh, no shit. Hey,
But
that's
I'll tell
true.
Well, you might do it. You might do it once, and then you're going to be off that team, right?
Well, let me just tell you a true story. I'm not going to mention the deputy's name. He brought in a pipe bomb into the station, and Lieutenant, I'll mention this name because he passed on. He was a Green Beret. Lieutenant Watch Commander, John, you probably remember him. Lieutenant Bill Siebert went berserk.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he went berserk, but the deputy brought the pipe bomb in the station. I mean, oh my God. I'll never forget. But that theme, that's part of TV, and I love it. But in reality, there's no way you would bring that bomb. The bomb squad would
that's
never
just
let that
true.
happen.
But there are some stupid cops out there that do shit like that. But we had one in Santa Clarita.
I just gave you an example of one.
Yep, in Santa Clarita, we have the swap meet, and somebody picked up a mortar shell at the swap meet, and he took it home and he unscrewed it, and guess what was inside?
Yeah.
No mechanics, but all the plastered explosive was still on the inside of the wall, and he starts hammering it with his. Now it would not explode, and that's that type of explosive. But he brings it in our counter. I'm like, what the fuck? And we called ours explosives. They came out immediately and took it outside, and we cleared out the station. And it was already harmless. He said, you could bang on that all day. It's not going to do it. You have to have an ignition. But that was freaky. But if you ever want, like on this show, speaking about bombs, where the bombs go off and people are jumping out of the way, that don't happen in real life. You can talk to, if you ever want to get Tom Spencer on here, he's an expert on that shit, and working arson explosives for years. The shock wave will melt everything inside you depending on how close you are to that bomb. All these TV shows we're talking about reality, it's not reality, it's TV. I mean, it's Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's get back to the movie, or at least bring it back in here. I got some quotes down here, that were said during the movie, and I can't remember who said it. Maybe we can get some help from the audience here, or maybe you guys can remember. And I'm going to marry Donald Trump. Did you guys catch that? And that was said in the movie?
Oh yeah.
That was the lady, the female detective Colleen Camp.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. It just goes show you the kind of the New York icon he was at the time. He was the local celebrity, actually national, I think, by this point. And I'm going to marry Donald Trump. Well, who didn't, right? And it's really kind of should be the response. He's had so many wives, but I just caught that. I thought that was kind of fun. And we do get a response from let's see, Tom Baker. Let's see, favorite chase scenes. What he's got? Hell Drivers, 1957. All right, I'll look that one up with Stanley Baker. I don't know if you guys remember that. And
I know who Stanley Baker was, the actor. But 1957, I was 3, so I don't remember that movie.
You don't remember that movie?
I was just born in 1957.
I'll stay quiet on that one since I'm the junior.
Hey, speaking of things that were said in the movie, Pat. One thing I wanted to bring up, 2 things, but one thing is, in the first one, his catchphrase was "Yippee-ki-yay."
Yeah.
And he brought that from Geenatry and Yippee-ki-yay. In this one, he makes a statement when he's talking to Samuel Jackson. I can't remember what they were doing, but Jackson's talking shit, and he says, "What do you think? I'm smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo?"
Yeah.
You remember that song? That was from the Statler Brothers, "Flowers on the Wall," and basically that's the phrase in there. I'm doing nothing but smoking cigarettes and watching Captain Kangaroo.
I don't
goes
remember
on
that,
and on,
John. Thanks for reminding me.
Yeah,
So
and
that
I'm kind
was
of
in there, but
partial.
also-
I think I'm kind of partial to Roy Rogers myself. I think that's the movie. So yep. That's so it was Roy Rogers. Yeah,
Roy Rogers. What did I say, Geenatry? Yeah, Roy Rogers.
Yeah.
But also one thing.
That's a truck race. Okay.
Ray. Fuck.
No thanks.
I just had a brain fart.
Right, hit the back of your head. It'll there you go.
Ralph brought it up. It worked. He mentioned Graham Greene's name. I never got a chance to bring him up. He plays one of the detectives in the beginning, and he's the one that's sent to find McLean. He's a Native American actor. Been around for a long time. He was a Marine in Vietnam. He has PTS. He's an Indian activist, and he's been in so many movies. Dancing with Wolves, you name it, he's been in it. In fact,
yeah, and he makes
about
it all the way
Stallone
through.
earlier.
Yeah.
He was in Stallone's new TV show, Tulsa King, on the
Yep.
last episode. Great actor.
Great actor.
Okay, carry on, Pat.
Yeah, so they're looking for the bomb, but we got to talk a little bit about the Federal Reserve scene. So, obviously, this is a robbery. That's what this is about, right? It isn't terrorism. Although, in the beginning, the FBI guys tell him who he is, and of course, Hans knows who they are. And this is the stuff that he addresses them by name. So it just gives you the idea that he's way superior than anybody who's chasing him, right? And how do they know those particular agents will be in New York at the time? Whatever. But this is Hollywood, right? And so going into the Federal Reserve, I just, for me, okay, the Federal Reserve is going to be that vulnerable. I don't know. And I did look up, right? I had to look up what is 2,400 pounds. Oh no, that's the 2,400 pounds explosives. How much is, so there was 6,333 metric tons of gold is worth $336 million approximately, give or take a million here. So that's how much was supposed to be in there. Huh? That's a lot of cash. Well, that's it. That's what and they said 100 million. That in the movie, I think they said 100 million. So I'm like, really? Wow.
Back then the price of gold was probably a hell of a lot lower than it is now.
140 billion.
Oh, they say 140 billion. Maybe I missed a couple zeros here because I am like, wait a minute, what's the value of 6,033? Maybe I missed a digit there. Okay, so but that's how I looked at them taking down the Federal Reserve, and I'm just like, no way, that's not going to happen. It's just unrealistic. It's not going to be that easy to get to. They're not going to be able to tunnel through, and we have seen. All right, I guess, Ralph, I'm going to ask you to explain a tunnel job to the audience. Tunnel job, breaking in somewhere. You want to explain that? Because that's basically what this was.
Well, they got underneath and they came through and they chiseled and bombed. And, first of all, there's so many backup security systems down in Wall Street, and especially the Federal Reserve. I don't know if you've ever been on a tour of, the Wall Street, and I had a good friend from NYPD give me one with my son. And there are so many backup systems, monitors and sensors and, and cameras and, even back in the day, there were still systems before the CCTV. So, that's movies. That's why you love movies. I mean, that scene when they got in, and then I love when John McClane goes through in his usual suave self and gets in the elevator and does his thing. That's fun. That's fun stuff.
And I'll throw this one to you, John. And I always like the little clues. So if you remember back the first one, you probably didn't watch it recently, but in the first one, Holly Gennaro, she's got this office gadfly that's kind of hitting on her. He's the office sexual harasser. And he talks about, hey, take a look at her Rolex. He says that to Jane, to John McClane. I think to diminish John McClane. Like, okay, your wife's buying a Rolex. You're just a cop, right? That was purposeful, right? And but that later on, towards that last scene when Gruber dies, he's holding on to Holly Gennaro's arm, right? And what is allowing him to maintain his grip is that damn Rolex.
Yeah.
You remember this scene? And was McClane reached down and hit the clasp on it. The Rolex went, and then Gruber went down in that iconic scene where he's looking up and trying to shoot John McClane. But that's what I thought of when John sees the badge on the guy in the elevator. So there was a clue. The copper got killed. The detective got killed. There was something about his badge.
The number. He knew his partner's number of his badge. That's why.
Yeah. Remember earlier when they were talking about playing the lotto, and the guy and the one cop says everybody plays their own badge number, and that one cop was 6919. And sure enough, he sees in the reflection he's wearing his buddy's badge.
Yep.
and so that's the clue that's important later, right? And you don't always pick up on that, but that's exactly what happened in the elevator scene. This is what tipped off John McClane that these guys weren't the real deal. And of course, was it 5-1, 4-1, and he manages to take them all out. Now, we all know if you're going to act, you do have the advantage, at least briefly, but in a fight with multiple people. But hey, this is the movie, so John survives. But the other part of this on the Federal Reserve thing is, the guard noticed too late that there's something wrong with these workmen, right? And because he starts looking at the boots, and if you saw Die Hard 2, very same thing happened. John McClane is in a restaurant in the airport, and he's noticing these people marching through, and he notices the boots, and he realizes there's something wrong. These aren't just tourists, right?
Right.
And he noticed, there's similarities to them. They're together, and he just notices that, and then you see this in this movie. So it's a throwback. These are, of course, sequels, and so these are throwbacks to the first two movies, is what I see, and these little clues are indicative of what you see in the first movie. So the badge thing was kind of a cool. Sometimes I like the way they do that cinematically. How important, you don't realize how important it is till an hour.
This is true. Right? You know what's funny is Hollywood, they've used just about every idea a million times. And there's so many these movies where somebody's impersonating somebody. And how do they determine it? The wrong shoes.
Yeah.
Somebody's wearing tennis shoes with a suit, or wearing gym clothes, but they got black leather shoes on. It's always, they stick something in there and they do it in every movie. This one, though, was the badge. It was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it's something that it doesn't fit. There goes that deviation assessment and stuff I'm talking about.
Exactly.
Right? Early on, let's see. I got the gold part. This is the other part of the Federal Reserve part is, McClane shows up and Zeus shows up, and the cops there are actually are part of our bad guys team, right? And they let Simon know he's here. So Simon's coordinating all this stuff, and this is very much like Hans Gruber, where he's coordinating everything, and he's not panicked by all this stuff happening. But it does, like I said earlier, it seems like there's an expectation that these things would happen, and that Simon expects all this stuff, and of course he shows up. They go to the stadium, and both guys don't go to the stadium, so they don't kill Zeus, because that's where they wanted to kill McClane, and Zeus was there at the stadium. That doesn't happen, right? So now they end up at the Federal Reserve, and they don't kill him there. Then they just play it off, and the goal is to get away with the money. Killing McClane is absolutely secondary, right? So, and it seems like Simon's letting that goal go. Okay, that's not the most important thing. Just let that go. Let's get our money and get the hell out of here, right? What do you think, Ralph? You think that was the transition? What was going on here? That's kind of the impression. He wants to kill him, but he wants the money more than that.
Yeah, I believe in the script that they wrote was let Samuel L. Jackson go, because they want to bring any attention. If you want to look at it from a police perspective or a criminal's mind, let him go. And probably they knew they were going to take out John McClane in the elevator, but he beat them to the punch. But let the Samuel L. Jackson go. He's not the one I really want. So let him go. And Samuel L. Jackson didn't pick up on that, and that they were not cops, and he left. But John McClane did. And there's the kind of paradox of all that, between Samuel Jackson and John McClane of their careers.
Right, and it's they wanted to get John, they didn't get him, but the number one goal, of course, all of this mess is to get the gold, to get the money.
Yeah.
Right?
That was hey, Pat. I just want to make a commentary that Tom Baker mentioned a movie that was really an excellent movie. With Dustin Hoffman was The Marathon Man, and that that's a great movie about here. Kind of the criminal mind, and it goes back to the Nazis and stuff. And So Tom brought it up. That's a great movie. Great actors.
I
just
Olivier was the Nazi.
I'll never forget that scene. Is it safe? You know, he plays a dentist, right? And a Nazi dentist, and he's drilling into the
So you know, Pat. I don't mean to interrupt you, but the actor Divine, he's on a commercial about gold, and he goes, "It's safe." So I find that very interesting. Those words, and he was in that movie, with Sir Laurence Olivier say, "Is it safe?" And I thought that was so interesting.
For me, I think that would be a great air freshener movie. The husband comes out of the bathroom and the wife says, "Is it safe?"
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Be safe.
Definitely not. It's not safe.
No, I come out and say, give it 20 minutes.
Is it safe?
Is it safe? Yeah.
And so our hero John, he does survive the elevator attack. He realizes his buddy's dead too. He sees the guy down there in the tunnel, and he's realizing this is a robbery. And of course they're figuring out that how do they get the stuff out of there, and they go through the aqueducts, all that other stuff, and he ends up talking to Simon on the radio. So this is the first time where it's a la Die Hard 1, where there's a communication between the two on the radio, right? I'm surprised, kind of like, I'm surprised you're still with me, John. He's becoming an irritant because he is interfering with his plans, and his plans aren't going the way he wants to do. He thought John would be long dead at this point, right? So he is getting under Simon's skin, but this kind of is the same kind of interplay that he had with Hans. You remember that, John?
Yeah, but what cracked me up here? He goes, "Your brother was an asshole," and he smiles. He goes, "Yeah, he was an asshole." He agreed with him. I'm like, holy shit. But criminals are criminals.
He said he was an asshole. He's still my brother.
Yeah.
Right.
But the bottom line is, hey, you may be my brother, but I want that gold.
Yep. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. What was it? Bearer bonds was in the first movie. I had to look up what bearer bonds meant because I didn't know it. And this place, it's gold. And it we'll get into this scene, but let's throw up here's a comment that I think Tom Baker's got it up. Every bone in our body would be broken. I mean, they end up, as they're pursuing these guys, jumping on ships and doing all kinds of stuff. But this is what in all of the Die Hard movies, including this one, every bone in their bodies would have been broken 10 times over. This could be said about a lot of the action flicks where cops are doing all this stuff. All I know is you get in a fight, even if you win the fight, it hurts, right?
Yeah.
And you see what these guys are doing, and they keep getting up and moving on. And I tell you what, every decade as a cop, you got a lot more aches and pains that prevent you from doing the things you used to do in your 20s. Because McClane here's a lieutenant. You'd think he's at least 45, and he's doing all of this stuff. And every bone in his body would be broken. He'd have gone to the hospital after one of the fight scenes, right, Ralph?
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. That's we say it over and over again. That's movies, but Bruce Willis does stay in shape. God bless him. What's going on, and I wish him the best in his life. And he brought a lot of entertainment and happiness to all of us, during his career. But I'll transition some if you don't mind. Look at the movie French Connection. And to me, that is more realistic police work in the chase and run up the stairs up to the guy and to the subway and I mean they captured French Connection really with police work. Reality was more in those movies than this.
Hey Ralph, your audio is coming somewhat muffled.
Yeah, it's muted. I don't know what happened.
Can you hear me?
Oh yeah,
that's much better.
Better.
So what I was saying is, you asked the question, Pat, and I believe that's Hollywood, and God bless Bruce Willis and all the acting and Samuel L. Jackson, but you look at the French Connection movie, that was true more to reality of what police work is about, foot pursuits and, chasing that sniper up the staircase to the, in the vehicle. I mean, they capture more reality, I think, back then.
I agree.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
Eddie Egan was, the movie was about him, and he played in that movie. And he was the expert on it, so that helped.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at a lot of those old
Yeah,
cop dramas, particularly from New York, and well, even the Wamba, if you look at the movies that were based upon Wamba, those were realistic, what cops deal with every day, and of course this is
Still there?
escapist. No, Ralph, we're having problems again. So there we go. So, but this is escapist Hollywood, right, John? And
Oh yeah.
what the? I think is Ralph coming at us on a cell phone? I think that's what's going. Are you working on a cell phone too, John, or what are you working on?
No, I'm on my iPad. Always am.
Okay. All right. Okay, so he's talking to Simon. He's clearly getting under his skin, like he did with Hans. And this is the scene where they defuse the bomb in the school. I really enjoyed this scene. In fact, I remembered it as it was coming up when I was watching again. Here's where they're jumping on the ship and they're doing that stuff. But I wanted to talk about that scene with our great character actor who plays the bomb tech. And he's sweating it. They try to get the kids out. They believe that they're being monitored. And so they sneak the kids out, and the cops realize that that's the character actor you're talking about, right, John? The American Indian guy? Yep.
Yeah, Green.
They realize that they're not being monitored, and they manage to get the kids out, but there's a few kids left in there, and they're trying to get the bomb tech to come out, but he says, no, I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to defuse the bomb, which, you know what? I don't think I think a lot of guys would try to do that, right? If kids were at stake, I think that's.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, those were the kids that Samuel Jackson gave the lecture to in the beginning, played by Aldous Hodge and his brother, and then two other kids. And yeah, absolutely, no cop's going to leave those kids in there alone. No way.
All right, so we got a message. Cop. Yeah, and and then it was funny when he clips his last wire, I forget what he says, but he the liquid comes out and he realizes that it's
maple
like
syrup.
Juice.
Yeah,
maple syrup.
It started mixing and he's like, oh shit, and then all of a sudden it spurts in his face and he falls back and he goes, maple syrup.
Yeah,
that was good.
I think Ralph is trying to get hold of me. And hello? Well, he sent me a message. So let me read the message here for the audience. Pat, I'm having difficulty with connectivity today. I am signing off. Thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. Tell John and Martin, Merry Christmas, Feliz Navidad y Prospero Uno Nuevo. Prospero Uno Nuevo. Is that how you say Happy New Year?
Prospero Año Nuevo.
Prospero Año Nuevo.
Have a prosperous New Year.
Oh, prosperous New Year's. Okay, prosperous Año Nuevo. Okay, I'll have to surprise my Spanish teacher with that tonight at Spanish class.
No, Chief, I had a point of contention with you on this movie.
Okay, go ahead.
And I don't think anybody ever got under Simon's skin.
Oh, you don't?
No. I think if only at the end when he took the M6 and said, no, now it's I have to finish this.
Yeah.
Nobody, and I mean nobody, not the police, not in his crew. He was always cold-blooded and cool and collected.
Until the end where he said, shit, I should have gotten rid of him a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he's realized a mistake. Well, I thought the other terrorist guy got under skin too, because he's lying. He's ripped us off. He's deep.
That was planned because that female assassin was that other terrorist guy's girlfriend.
Right.
And then she turns around and ends him.
Because she was upgrading boyfriend.
Right. Right. Well, all right. Well, I should talk about her because I looked her up. Her name is Sam Phillips, and I don't remember seeing her in a lot of stuff. She was in Fan Dance. She was in Martinis and Bikinis.
Ooh, top
What was
line
that?
movie.
It's off a line movie. Yeah, but I don't think I remember seeing her in a ton of stuff. But she's a singer in, I think it's a Christian band. She's from Glendale, John. That's your stomping grounds, right?
Oh, Glendale, California. Yeah.
Yeah, she's from Glendale area, and I hadn't remembered her. So she does contemporary. She's in the early '80s. She did contemporary Christian music. That's her background. Vocals for Christian artists.
Yep, she is. Yeah.
Mark Hurd
yeah.
and Randy Stonehill. Huh?
I'll be down. I just looked her up. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Born Again music.
Yeah. So she's obviously a faith-based person. So maybe that's why she's not getting a lot of parts these days in Hollywood, because
Probably.
only those who are in the hedonistic lifestyle seem to get whatever they want.
Right. She's 62 years old now, so she was 32, 33 at that movie.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting. She's an interesting character. What?
Well, I looked up her spouse is Eric Goffrain, but her previous husband for 20 years was T-Bone Burnett, which was a country western singer for years and blues singer.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I brought her up to you. You looked her right up. But it was interesting. In Die Hard 1, they had a couple of ballet dancers who played bad guys in that one. A couple of dancers. Who was the big tall blonde guy right at the end, Martine, that got killed? Carl?
Yeah, that one, and yes, Carl. And the other one was the guy
brother.
with the glasses.
Yeah, he was. I mean, they weren't related in real life, but he was also a dancer, which I was like, wow, and so it's where these are interesting people that they find to put in these movies, because they're not. They are actors and actresses, but that wouldn't be their main art form, is what I'm trying to say. Hers appears to be music, and she does these sideline things, right? These movies, and those guys, obviously theirs were dancing. So it's curious. I don't know that much about how they find out scripts, right? They write a script and our cast, how they do the casting. But it's interesting when you look at these movies, particularly this series of movies. They have interesting people in the cast that you wouldn't expect to see. I don't know. What'd you think of her character, Martine, our female assassin?
I liked her. I would have liked to see more of her. But when she
Well, she didn't have
Okay.
much-
All right.
know,
Should we be getting your mind out of the gutter there, or is it you just think her character should have been more developed? Is that what?
yeah,
Okay.
there's no way I'm gonna get out of this intact.
This is where you say English is my second language. I blew that one, right?
But she doesn't have that much screen time, but when she's on screen, her actions count.
Yes. Yeah.
The thing is, she was kind of a psycho. I mean, she was slashing the security guard like she was dancing,
she sliced him up
and
good.
then she is stabbing. And when your psycho boss tell you that's enough.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, I think the other thing that comes through with both Simon and Katya, I think is her name, Katya, is they like the thrill of the game because it's aroused them sexually, and here in the midst of this heist where I would be all business, they're thinking, well, I got to heighten this experience with a celebration way before they should be celebrating, right? Because they still got to get out of the area, right? And so, and of course, maybe this is where McClane got under their skin, right? Martin?
Yeah.
Well, he's about to
when
get
he interrupts.
And they interrupt that, but it also shows that they're For some criminals, I call it hot prowl burglars, John. It's like hot prowl burglars. There's a reason why they're breaking into a house at night when they know people are going to be there, because they
Yeah,
want the
they're
thrill.
sick.
They want the thrill. It's the thrill that's more important for them, right? It's the thrill of it
Oh yeah.
that
Well,
they
that's how
like,
they
right?
get off. A lot of them, seriously.
Yeah, Martin, you know what I'm talking about? A hot brow burglar is, you have burglars generally operate during the daytime. People go to work, they break into houses, they steal, and they go away. That's your typical burglar. A hot brow burglar, he breaks in at night. And there's she's. They break in at night, and it's the excitement of breaking in somebody's home when they're still there. It's, as Tom Baker says, yeah, the thrill and the control. That's exactly right. But there's also a sexual component to that as well, right?
Absolutely.
And many times, these hot prowl burglars, it leads on to sexual assault and things like that. But that's how they start out. I mean, they may never do a sexual assault, but they get a sexual thrill out of breaking in when people are there, looking at them while they sleep, and then ripping them off. In fact, the Night Stalker, that was part of his game, right?
Oh yeah.
Breaking in when people were there. He wanted people there, to get that thrill. And sometimes he did break in and not do anything. He would just steal stuff and leave. Same with BTK, that other serial killer. I forget what, Kansas. I think it was from Kansas. Same kind of thing. He would break in, and that was the big thrill of it. And so when I saw this scene, the sexual thrill they get out of this robbery, this ripoff, that's part of it for these guys, these sickos, anyways, right? They're thinking, let's go have some sex here right after doing this ripoff of billions of dollars.
Williams.
I have no idea what this is about. Maybe you too.
Look at Russell Williams. No, I don't know. Tom, you might have to give us a little more information. We are neophytes and troglodytes in comparison to you and to your movie knowledge. So help us out there a little bit. But here's the scene that I think is an important scene too. So Samuel L. Jackson, they kind of split up when they get on the boat, and Samuel L. Jackson makes his way to the pilot house of the boat, and he tells everybody to freeze, like a classic. He's not really under any rules. He doesn't have to do that, right? Colonel Williams.
Yeah, Russell Williams. I'll tell you who it was. The movie written about him was portrayed by Kevin Bacon. He was a colonel in the Canadian Air Force, a rapist,
yes.
Rapist, murderer, serial rapist, serial murderer. He was a colonel, Royal Canadian Air Force. Yeah, it took a while to get him, but they got him.
Yeah, he would break in and steal women's underwear, and then he'd wear it. This is very much like BTK. He did that kind of same goofy stuff, But right, Tom, this is about sex too. This is the thrill of it. That's what this is about. That's what so criminals, some of them, they're twisted. And I think that sex scene is about that, showing that these are twisted, sick people, and they enjoy the violence. It gets them off sexually. That's what I kind of saw in this. So anyway, so our guy Zeus makes it to the pilot house. He flew the Queen. Yes, that's right. He did fly the Queen. Russell did. Yeah, he did fly the Queen. He makes it to the pilot house, and here's the thing, right? We as cops, we might have rules. We have to give them warning. Drop your guns, right? I don't think you really have to, because they've already killed enough people that they're a threat, right? They're a danger. So I mean, I think even per our rules, you can start lighting them up, because they're armed and they've demonstrated a likelihood that they would kill you if given the opportunity, right?
Oh, absolutely.
But Zeus goes in there. He's doing the hey, freeze, and what he doesn't, he doesn't realize that technically they have the advantage, even as he's yelling freeze, because they know how to use weapons and they can react with their weapons quicker than he can actually pull that trigger. But the worst part about it is he doesn't know a damn thing about guns, and he's pointing a gun at him with the gun on safe, right?
Usual.
So
Hollywood.
He should have just been lighting them up, right? You come in shooting if you're going to do that. And go ahead, Martine. Do you agree with that, Martine? He should have just come in shooting. It doesn't help for the movie, but that's what.
Well,
what you've
exactly.
given.
That's the problem. In reality, I would have taken him out first thing. And there's no reason I couldn't do that because of what you've all been through on that movie. But it's Hollywood, and they got to do it to where it keeps you enthralled for that 2-hour movie.
Right. And here's the other part of this this build up to this scene, John, and he, of course, because he got the safety on. I don't know why they didn't kill him, but he shoots him. He shoots him in the leg, right? And instead of just killing him, I don't understand that, but it's Hollywood, right? And they got to put him. They got to put him at the bottom of the ship with the pig iron, whatever, because they aren't. The plot is they're hired by a bunch of people from the Middle East to blow up the gold from the Federal Reserve, and that would spike the market, and everyone's going to make a lot of money. That's the goal. That's what they're hired to do. At least that's what's implied in the movie. But they're gonna rip off the gold, and the gold's not going to be at the bottom of the New York Sound there. But Zeus and McClane they capture McClane. They have to be on this bomb thing. They have to be sitting on top of the bomb. And that's where he's going to blow him up, right? That's the scene. So that's why he shoots Zeus in the leg instead of just killing him. So, Martine, what do you think? Wasn't all that realistic. I had to just come out shooting. What do you think?
Nothing in this movie is realistic, but it would have made sense if he wanted to use Zeus as a means to flush out McClane, but he doesn't do it. So
right, he does. Yeah, he doesn't do it. And now they do capture McClane here, and I think we got to get into the last scene a little bit. And this is the last couple of scenes, and so they're on top of the bottom again. Of course, this is realism is out the window. Yeah, it is. And
it has been out for a while now.
they're handcuffed sitting on top of this bomb. And John McClane, of course, has to dislocate his shoulder, right, so that he can somehow drop a wire that he's gotten into the hand of Zeus so that Zeus can pick the cuffs. And, of course, Zeus knows how to do this because he's from Harlem. I mean, there's so many...
No. It's because he's a locksmith.
He's a locksmith. Okay. Right.
Among other things.
Among other things, right? And so he's able to do all this stuff, and they're able to get free and survive the explosion. And during this last scene, or almost last scene, second from last scene, he tells Simon, "Hey, I got a headache. All right, do you have some aspirin?" Which is what he's been saying through the whole movie. I got a headache. And so he throws him his aspirin because it's interesting because Simon's also taking aspirin, right? And the window is on the 9th floor, and he And so he takes, the ship blows up. They manage to swim ashore, and he he takes the aspirin, and he sees at the bottom of the aspirin in French, north of the border, I think is what it said, and he recognizes that. Of course, he knows. Oh, that's a hotel, and there's an area north of the border, and we got to go there. That's where they're at, and which sets up the final scene where Simon says, "All right, I'm going to finish this guy, right?" And then he gets the machine gun. He goes to finish the guy, and here's it's really unbelievable because, McClane's in a helicopter with some cop who doesn't look like he's cleaned his gun in 20 years, and he's got these crusty bullets in there, right? And all he's got is this 5-shot chief, and I forget what movie I was watching where I said, all he got is these 5-shot. What movie were we watching? They all had 5-shot chiefs saying we're hitting everything. Yeah, and I'm thinking, there's no way. That's a close quarter weapon, man. You're not going to be shooting. But here is he's fighting. He shoots back at Simon's helicopter with this 5-shot chief, and of course, the cop helicopter gets shot. It has to land, and Zeus can't get out. His leg's been shot, and so McClane draws him away, taking fire. And as the helicopter gets close, because Simon has to see McClane die, right? All these things are have to happen for McClane to be a hero here. And McClane's got two crunchy bullets left in his gun, his little 5-shot Chief, and he makes a shot of probably, what is that, 25 yards, John, to hit a wire.
least.
To hit a
Yeah,
wire,
up above them.
and the wire comes down on the helicopter, right? And I'm thinking, okay, all right, I mean, it was fun and it was entertaining, and of course the helicopter blows up. It's so completely unrealistic. One, that he wouldn't hit him as he's running. I mean, we're right, and two, that the guy would come in close just under the wire so that the wires can be shot into the helicopter, and that he's going to hit the wire with this 5-shot Chief. Okay, obviously I'm calling out the ridiculousness of this scene, but same thing, John.
Yeah.
Well, the whole third
Yeah,
act
this is what I get bored with, because it's all Hollywood, and at least show some reality to it at some point, because I'm just sitting there going, oh boy, yeah. But that happens in all these shows. You remember the TV show The FBI with Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. back in the 60s and 70s?
Yeah.
He had his 2-shot, and he'd kill guys running 25 feet away, and wound them in the leg, then he'd arrest them. Give me a break, please. I don't care how good a shot you are. That ain't happening.
Let's see. Let's throw up Tom's, since he's participating, let's throw up his comment. I've never handled a gun, but I've never handled it, but it's ridiculous. These movie guns magically have endless bullets. Yeah, that's true. They didn't do that with this scene, but yeah, you're right. It just keeps shooting and shooting and shooting. And what I've had to qualify with the 2-inch, right? So basically, I'm calling him a Chief, but basically it's a 38 5-shot 2-inch, and you have to slow down to make sure you're hitting the target, because when you're holding the gun, one, because it's a smaller gun, it's got a little bit of a kickback, so it's got more kickbacks or more recoil, which means it's harder to stay on target, so you have to have more time to correct, right? And because the barrel length is smaller, any deviation on your hand throws off the round if you're trying to hit center of mass, which is what you're trained to shoot. And just to clarify, the reason why cops shoot center of mass is because they're shitty shots, right? If you're the goal is to stop them, right? So if you hit them center of mass, that's going to stop the threat, right? If you're I remember reading this. Remember Ramona Ripson from the ACLU? That name, remember from way back in the day, and she wrote an editorial in the LA Times saying, "Why don't the cops just shoot their hands or their legs, or shoot the gun or their hand?" And I'm thinking,
yes,
who are these morons? Because I mean, it'd take you about 60 minutes.
Well, they're the TV generation. She watched that on TV, so it has to be true.
Even the best shot under pressure is going to struggle to hit somebody in the arm or leg, right? And
whoa! Lone Ranger never failed.
Well, yeah, that's TV stuff. And we're talking about guys. I was at a scene, and we had a former Navy SEAL, and we had this active shooter thing going on, and he was a good 50 yards away, and the guy was on a second story. He was in a bush, and the guy was shooting with the shotgun, and he opened up with his 9mm, and he had a pattern that was probably about 6 inches on the guy, right? But he's a guy, if you think of the Navy SEALs, these are guys who,
that's all they do.
100,000 rounds, we might, in our career, maybe we might do 10,000 rounds over what? 35 years, and they're doing, in 4 years they've probably done 100,000 rounds. So their trigger control, how they handle the gun is all great, but hitting that with 238 rounds from a Smith, small 2.5-inch Smith and Wesson, that ain't gonna happen. Those will be 2 misses, and John McClane would be dead today if that was real life.
Exactly. Just like you said, if you're deviating just a 1/4 inch on your target with a 2-inch at 25 yards, when it gets down there, it's 2 feet away.
Deviation. And except of course if you're what's his name, Alec Baldwin, he seems to hit what he wants to.
True.
I don't like that guy, so I had to throw that one out there, right? I think he's a killer. He got off. he is. I know he probably did a payout, but that guy, he has no patience for anybody that doesn't fit with him politically, and I don't.
That woman never should have died.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree. And the thing about it is, I think it was after it was a Bruce Lee's kid. Who's the kid? He got killed in a movie.
Brandon Lee.
Brandon Lee. And after that one, they embraced tactics. So because you can use camera angles to look like you're pointing your gun at somebody, right? And so on set, the goal was, never point a gun at anybody and always make sure it's not loaded, right? And everybody's supposed to do that. Even these experienced actors like Alec Baldwin, you don't trust, which is what we're all taught in the academy too. Don't trust when they give you a gun. Always to check to see if it's live, right? That's what we're taught. And that's what they're taught. And he didn't follow the protocols. That's why I have a real problem with him not being convicted, because it seems like he ignored all the safety protocols, which led to the fatality. That's how I see it. But in the movie here, at the end, after he finishes off Hans, he does the Roy Rogers yippee-ki-yay MFer. I'm avoiding swearing, John, because I've told Gary I would never, the guy who owns the channel, I'd never swear on the program. So I have to. I've been avoiding that. And I'm good.
And you still have me on.
Well, you guys can swear all you want. I don't care. He challenged me. He said I would have you swear, and I don't think I've sworn yet, Martin. Maybe I slipped here.
I mean, this channel is like a sailors' convention.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't.
It's because I do other programs, and I've been doing. I don't know if you guys heard of Spaces on X now. So I've been doing some Spaces, going into some conservative stuff to build up some activity on my other channel, Briefing with the Chief, or my other show, and it's working out. And but man, they get cut loose in there. It's more moderate to conservative folks on there, and a lot of them are Trump supporters. And there's one Jewish channel that gets going, man. And this gal, she runs this. She can cuss with the best of them, but now she works behind a pseudonym. So I don't. I got my real name out there, and John could tell you, Martin, you just get in so much trouble when you just cut loose at work. So for me, I worked really hard at purging my language. John didn't, but I did at work, because
I tried for 5 or 6 seconds.
But yeah, so so I've just conditioned myself to be, to avoid that stuff. Whatever, in these movies, though, it's part of the movie. Particularly these cop shows, they just let it go with all this stuff. But hey, this was a fun movie. I wouldn't say it was I would agree with Thomas.
It was not my favorite.
He said something.
I like the
first one. The first one will always be the best.
Yeah. Exactly. And the problem is, like I said earlier, the writers are tired. They just keep copying and copying. I see sitcoms now where they're talking and doing the same stuff they did 20 years ago, same jokes and everything else. I'm like, it just doesn't do anything for me.
You see a lot of the same themes because I guess in Hollywood, if it's a proven thing, you kind of go with it. It'll be curious to see what happens when they start using AI to do some of the writings.
You won't notice the difference. It's equally bad.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I like Yellowstone. Yellowstone hasn't been done before, and it's done well, written well.
Right.
Not a lot of cliche stuff in there.
Well, Taylor Sheridan, that guy really knows how to write.
And and he's got a lot of bucks now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I enjoy Westerns. I'll have to look for, like I did. Well, we did High Noon, right? Didn't I do High Noon with you?
Yes, it was one of the first shows, if I recall correctly.
Yeah, and that spoke to what's going on today, the betrayal of law enforcement. I'm less political. I'm less political after I got my other show now, so I still get into politics, but not as much. Yeah. All right, we're at the end of our show, Martine and John. Thanks for joining me again. I'll send a note to Ralph and thanking you for joining me. And
thanks, guys. I gotta go do my chores now.
All right, adios, man.
Hey, have a Merry Christmas, everybody.
Hasta luego. Yeah, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas,
Feliz Navidad y
everybody.
Prospero Año Nuevo. Ciao.
See ya.
All right, I'll be in touch, Martine. Take care.
Bye.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Thank you.